Hello, welcome to Thor Talk, the show all about Marvel's resident god of thunder. Thor has defeated Zeus and taken his power, but that power is not what it seems. It is the wheel of fate that controls the gods themselves. With it, Thor could do anything. With it, he could lose himself. If he remains intact, he still has a meeting with the Enchantress to attend to. The Immortal Thor has an eventful life on Thor Talk.
I am Thor the Thunderer, son of Odin, Prince of Asgard, and this world is under my protection.
The Immortal Thor number 15 was written by Al Ewing and was published in September of 2024. The issue begins with a stanza from the Old Norse poem Helgakvida Hundingsbanatver. Most powerful are, in the night season, all dead warriors than in the light of day. Helgakvida Hundingsbanatver is a poem about the Norse hero Helgi Hundingsbane, who is a descendant of Odin and the brother of Sigurd the Dragon Slayer. Helgi is especially notable because he is one of the few people to return to the land of the living from Valhalla. After Helgi is slain, his wife Sigrun the Valkyrie hears that Helgi has ridden into his burial mound. She goes there and finds him, and the two spend the night together. But Helgi has to leave before morning. After that, Sigrun waits in vain for Helgi to return once again. She tasks a serving maid with watching the burial mound for Helgi's return during the day, and then she herself watches it at night. This stanza is part of the serving maid's protest when Sigrun goes at night to watch the mound. In Norse mythology, the dead can walk again, but like the maid says, it is most often at night, and they are often very dangerous. The warning doesn't come to pass, as Sigrun dies waiting for her husband who never returns. This stanza relates to the issue in the resurrection of Dario Agger. A big emphasis is placed on the darkness of the secret laboratory where Dario is brought back. Agger, a dead man, now seems set on taking revenge on the gods, and so he is more dangerous as a dead man in the dark than he ever was in the light of day. The end began in darkness, and when light came, it brought no illumination, only more questions. The wheel has turned. The wheel turns. The wheel readies to turn. Understand ye yet, or what? The wheel turns. Thor too was in a place of darkness, holding light without illumination. Zeus was marked with the wheel of fate and corrupted by it. Thor defeated Zeus and took his power, but now that power threatens to corrupt him too. Hercules tells Thor that he must release Zeus's power. But Nyx warns that it will then return to Zeus, and the battle will begin again. Hercules asks Nyx for help, but she is uninterested, and instead goes to begin work on her new realm of darkness. Loki explains that Thor must pass the test of the rune Uruz, which represents endurance, and the Aurochs, ancient cattle that were wiped from the earth because of the mortals. Aye, the old beasts died, victims of the turning wheel, or were tamed. All things must perish, all things must face death, and the end. Be silent. Even the gods must bow to fate, and fate bows to me, for the wheel of fate is in my hand. In my hand, aye. I know what I must do. Call down the lightning, call down fate, call down everything I have been made heir to. The hand of Thor is upon all, and I have the power to carve my image into the stars themselves. But it is the power that speaks thus, not I. The power of Zeus cannot be fought. Yet did not Zeus contain the power in his hand as a golden thunderbolt? And did my own father not cage vast powers in matter in ages past? I will not be tamed, yet I must try. The energies writhed in Thor's grip and in his mind, yet he worked them to his will, into the shape he associated with his strongest self. And thus was born the Golden Belt, Yog-Yorth. Yog-Yorth the Enduring One, Yog-Yorth the Protector, Yog-Yorth, second of three. Would you know more? More will be told. Thor has passed the test of Uruz, and obtained a new weapon just like he did in the test of Radho. I assume that Thor's Belt of Strength, Megingjord, would be the second of the three that Thor wields in his fated last stand, and I was half right. Thor shapes Zeus's power into the shape he associates with his strongest self by turning it into a belt like the one that doubles his strength. Zeus's thunderbolt apparently was how he caged the Wheel of Fate in the past, and as Thor says, Odin performed a similar feat by caging the Mother Storm within Mjolnir. I was curious about the etymology of the name Yolgjorth, as it didn't ring any bells. Jorth, of course, means earth, and it's Gaia's Norse name, but Yolg isn't a word. It seems that it was made up by Ewing, but I think it's meant to be a Norse-looking version of the word yoke. The Wheel of Fate is compared by Thor to the Orarks, ancient cattle who were tamed by putting a yoke on them. So now the Wheel of Fate is tamed by caging it in a yoke. In Old Norse, that would actually be Oakjorth, and I do wish that Ewing had gone with a more accurate name for the belt, but I'm probably one of the only people nerdy enough to care. Thor has caged the power of Zeus with the power of Zeus. He did this to keep the Wheel of Fate at bay, but also to protect himself from Loki's rune magic. Thor agreed to trust Loki as his enemy, but Loki has involved not just Thor in his schemes. Loki allowed Tyr to be corrupted, caused Thor's brother to be killed, endangered Hercules in the test of Uruz, and nearly turned Thor into twice the monster Zeus was. The All-Father must think of all. Loki warns that Thor must consider his next words carefully as they may have consequences, but the words fell on deaf ears. By the All-Power, and by my will, I banish thee from the Golden Realm, and from my sight! The words were indeed spoken in haste, yet the Odin force was upon them, and in them. Loki was gone from Asgard, and from Thor. As the smoke cleared, Thor felt a chill rush through him, akin to the first touch of winter. With Yolgjorth keeping his magic at bay, Loki has now been banished by Thor for his actions. The narrative makes it clear that this is a mistake, and I'd have to agree that it is definitely very short-sighted. At the same time, I do understand why Thor felt he had to take action. Thor is willing to pay the price of Loki's tests, but the price is no longer limited to him. The theme of winter also emerges once again, and it seems that things are going to get very serious very soon. Never did Asgard look more glorious than when Thor arrived at the end of the Rainbow Bridge. Yet despite being hopeful that Yolgjord's protection would solve many of his troubles, he was still wary. At his back, the winter's wind blew still. Lady Sif greets her king, and Thor informs her that they have guests. Hypnos and Athena will need lodgings, and Zeus will need medical attention. Sif in turn tells Thor that Amora the Enchantress has arrived requesting an audience. He finds Amora in his hall, admiring his axe, saying that she didn't get a good look at it when she used it to frame him for murder. Thor asks why Sif let Amora in, and Sif replies that while they are fighting, Amora is as much of Asgard as any of them. Thor's personal feelings do not determine who belongs in Asgard. Or do they? Thor promises to discuss what happened with Loki later. Sif still leaves Amora with a warning. While she was dear to Sif's brother, and she has done good, the benefit of the doubt only goes so far, and Sif will be watching. This is an interesting moment from Sif. When it comes to Loki and Amora, it's usually Thor who is standing up for them against Sif, yet here the roles are reversed. It's a bit out of character for Sif. Even with her being very generous for Heimdall's sake and out of pity for Amora's loss, the Enchantress has recently shown herself to be Thor's enemy, and was very recently part of Malekith's army. Sif also knows what Loki did, and I would think she wouldn't take kindly to that. This doesn't fit Sif as we know her, but this isn't Sif as we know her. After taking her brother's post, she can see much, and she has been a voice of reason for Thor ever since he took the throne. Amora is no longer a threat, as we'll see, and as Sif already saw. Amora muses that it was generous of Sif to forgive her, and asks Thor if Sif and Beta Ray Bill are still together. Thor feels exhausted and tells Amora to explain what she wants. She assisted Scourge, who is trying to save Thor from his fated death, and Thor is sick of all the people around him trying to decide his fate. Then I give you my word, she says, that out of everyone who cares for you, and I still do, Thor, I will never try to save you from danger. Ha! Be careful, Amora. Sif may burst in, sword ready to save me from thy ensorcelled kiss. What kiss? Feeling ensorcelled? Nay, foiled again. So, here we are. Will you say it or shall I? 'Tis not a good idea. But wouldn't it be nice if it were? Such romances have existed, and could again, but not in a world where Amora has framed Thor for murder and muddied his mind with scald magic. She now holds the leash of those who would take revenge, and she could at any moment unleash them on Thor. Even though Thor is confident that no one they could send would be a threat to him, he doesn't appreciate Amora's deeds, and just banished Loki for similar actions. Despite that, he hasn't banished Amora or imprisoned her. Instead, he was so willing to forgive her that he nearly rekindled a romance with her. The question is, what does Thor wish to be forgiven? How has Thor wronged her? Eirik. Amora's son was killed. He was of Asgard, and when he faced his end, his All-Father was not there. Many would deny that Thor was responsible, but Thor would not. Now Amora has made it so that the earth sees the blood on Thor's hands as well. But Amora could clear Thor's name, if he brings her son back to life. No amount of blackmail would make Thor do this. He will not deny Eirik his reward in Valhalla. Amora decides that she'll just need to do more to convince him. A few issues ago, I theorized that Amora wanted to make Thor a better king of Asgard by keeping him away from the earth so that what happened with Eirik and Heimdall wouldn't happen again. Thor's loyalties would no longer be divided. It turns out that Amora's motivation was much more straightforward. She doesn't want revenge or to teach a lesson, she's just a mother who wants her son back. It's understandable, but Thor doesn't have a good history with resurrection. When he once attempted to resurrect a dead child, he failed to resurrect their soul, leaving an empty shell. Now Thor is more experienced, and at the very least, with some help, he might be able to pull it off. After all, Dario Agger is about to do the same thing. In any case, while Thor does genuinely regret his death, it seems he has no intention to bring him back when he has earned his place in Valhalla. While I did get Amora's main motivation wrong, I did somewhat predict a romance between the two, but they did wisely decide not to go down that road right now. It might still happen, we'll see. Regardless, I really enjoyed this little playful interaction between the two. It makes me want to see more, regardless of if we get more. Amora says this was never about revenge, but Thor knows that's not true for everyone. Roxxon wants revenge, and Amora may hold them at bay for now, but soon they will undoubtedly look for revenge on her as well. In a Roxxon laboratory, a man lies dead on the ground, and another rises from the dead. Dario Agger's replacement body is ready, and a human sacrifice has even restored his soul. The gods killed Dario Agger, so he thinks it's only fitting that Dario Agger kill the gods. Dario Agger is back, and he has set his sights on Thor and the Enchantress. Considering how much he represents humanity's stagnation, which is a big part of the overall story, it makes sense that there would be more to his story. From the teases of the upcoming issues, it looks like he'll be recruiting some Silver Age Thor villains, and giving them upgrades as well. Overall, this was another good issue, but not my favorite. It's hard to follow up the epic that was issue 14, to be fair, and hard to live up to the hype of that amazing cover by Alex Ross. It was very cool to see Thor tame the power of the Wheel of Fate and make it into a new powerful artifact. We also got some good characterization with Thor resisting the overwhelming power of the wheel. We also got some great characterization for Amora and a clear picture of what she wants. I really like seeing her interactions with Thor here, and I hope we get to see more of them. With Dario setting his sights on both of them, that will probably happen sooner than later. Well, that's all for this episode of Thor Talk. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, this issue wasn't necessarily my favorite. It was more of a breather before we get into the real stuff. I think things are really going to kick up. So yeah, I'm excited for that. With that being said, see you next time on Thor Talk, where
You'll behold in breathless wonder the God of wonder.